Welcome to my class, students. Class 3, subject English. Today we will be starting our third chapter, that is Selfish Giant, written by Oscar Wilde. This story is very heart-touching story, students. It's a very emotional story where it is shown that love and sympathy can change a harsh and cruel person. By loving, by caring, we can change cruel and harsh people. Everybody is not harsh. Everybody is not cruel. They pretend that they are cruel, they are harsh. The name of the story is Selfish Giant. What do you mean by selfish person? Selfish means one who doesn't want to share his things to others, who wants to keep everything for himself. Here is a story of Selfish Giant. Giant means what, students? Giant, the main character of the story, the giant, is very selfish, who doesn't want to share even his garden with the little children. You know that who is giant, students? Do you know? Giant actually does not mean the monster. Anybody who have very tall, who have very huge body physically, they are very tall to see, they are called as giant. The man in this story is very huge, he is very tall, bulky. That is why he is being referred here by the writer as giant. Here in this story, the giant, he was not actually a real monster. Though he was looking very ugly, though the giant was looking very harsh, but inside the harsh person and the ugly giant, there was a beautiful heart who knows what is love, what is care, how can we feel love. He was knowing all that. Cruelty cannot be the answer of cruelty, students. If you are cruel to somebody, it's not that we should be cruel if some person is cruel to you. It's not that you should also be cruel to that person. Harshness cannot be the reply of harshness. Hatredness also. Hatredness cannot be the answer of hatredness. We should be polite, we should be lovable, we should be soft spoken, and we should know the importance of love. We should tell them the importance of love. With that, anybody can be changed. So let us see how this cruel person, how this harsh giant is changed into a lovable person in this story. Some children who were friends played in the garden every afternoon. The lovable garden had soft green grass and beautiful flowers that looked like stars. It had peach trees which were full of juicy fruits. The birds sang so sweetly that the children sometimes forget to play and listen to their songs instead. Here in the first stanza, the poet is describing, first paragraph, the poet is describing the beauty of the garden, how the garden was. And who were coming in the garden? The little kids were coming in the garden, and what were they liking? They were liking the beautiful flowers which looked like stars. And the garden also had peach tree. In that peach tree, what was there? It was full with juicy fruit. And in the garden there were birds also. Birds sang very sweetly. They were singing very sweetly. Sometimes the children stopped their playing and they used to listen to the songs of birds. See the garden? It looked like a paradise here. Just see how beautiful the flowers are in the garden. The garden belonged to whom? It was belonging to a giant who visited his cousin in the afternoon. So children played happily in the garden until the giant returned. So this giant was visiting his cousin in the afternoon. So, in the absence of giant, these kids used to go to the garden and they used to enjoy the beauty of the garden. One day what happened? One day the giant came back early. He came back early. Where? He came back early to the garden. What is he seeing? Seeing the children playing in the garden, he shouted in the gruff voice. In the gruff voice. Gruff means, students, rough and low in pitch. He shouted. What is he shouting?
What are you doing here? This is my garden. Go away.
So these little kids, they got scared and they got afraid. What did they do? They just ran away from the garden. The giant was selfish. He did not want to share his garden with the children. He built a huge wall around his garden and wrote on the wall,
Children's not allowed. Those who enter will be punished.
So what did the giant do here? He wrote a board near the garden. What was the board telling? What did he write? He wrote, Children's not allowed. Those who enter will be punished. So poor these children were very sad. They had nowhere to play. So they were very sad and they came back home. When spring came, flowers bloomed. When spring came, flowers bloomed and little birds sang everywhere. But winter did not leave the selfish garden. Whose selfish garden it was? Selfish giant's garden. The flowers forgot to blossom. Blossom here means a flower or a mask of flowers, especially on the tree or bunch. The trees did not grow and the flowers did not sing. Where? In special. And the birds did not sing. Where they did not sing? In the garden of this giant. One little flower lifted its head from the grass. It was. What did the little flower tell? It saw the writing on the wall. The flower saw the writing on the wall and felt sorry for the children. The flower slipped into the grass and went back to sleep. So the flowers also did not bloom. Why? Because they did not see the kids playing in the garden. Even the birds did not come to the garden. If the flowers are not there, the birds also will not come to the garden. Even the trees also start growing. The trees also did not grow well in the garden. The garden became very dry. Why is spring so late in coming to my garden? The giant is thinking. The giant wondered. But spring never came, nor did summer. It was always winter in giant's garden. When autumn came, every other garden was full of golden fruits, except this giant's garden. This giant's garden was fully dry, but all other gardens was full of trees, flowers and birds. But only this giant's garden was fully dry. One morning, while the giant was still in bed, he heard sweet music. It sounded so lovely to his ears that he was sure the king's musicians were outside. The giant looked out from his window. He saw it was a small bird that was singing. Where it was singing? It was singing in his garden. Ah, spring has come at last, said the giant and rushed out. He was very happy. The giant was very happy. Why? Because he saw the bird singing in his garden. What did he see? It was the most wonderful sight. He saw the most wonderful sight. Through a hole in the wall, the little children had creeped in. Creeped means, students, to walk with back bent. They were sitting on the branches of the tree and laughing loudly. The trees were so happy to see the children that they were blooming with flowers. The birds were twittering and singing in delight. Twittering means here students, give a call means repeated light sounds and singing in delight. And the flowers looked up happily from the grass. The giant looked at the change in his garden in a awe. Awe means here feeling of wonder. What is he seeing? The giant is seeing so many changes in his garden. What was the first change he saw? He saw a little bird that was singing. When he went to the garden, what did he see? The children are coming through one hole. They made one hole in the wall of the garden and the children came in. They came in and the kids were laughing and playing on the branches of the tree. This tree also were so happy to see the children, and this trees started blooming with flowers. The birds also came in delight. What did the birds do? They were singing in delight. And the flowers, which was just sleeping down, the flower also was very sad. It looked very happy and it stood up in the grass. So this giant was very happy to see this change in his garden. But wait,